Numbers never lie. That's what my father taught me during long evenings at our kitchen table, as he helped me with my math homework. People can hide the truth in fancy words, he'd say, but numbers always tell the real story. I never imagined how crucial that lesson would become when I married into the Wellington family and their billion-dollar empire. My name is Julia Chen, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer of Wellington Industries, or at least I was until yesterday's board meeting. The story of how I uncovered one of the largest corporate frauds in recent history begins 3 years ago, when I first joined the company. I'd earned my MBA from Stanford and worked at one of the Big Four accounting firms before meeting Michael Wellington at a charity gala. He was different from his family, kind, genuine, more interested in environmental conservation than corporate politics. We fell in love, married within a year, and that's when his father, CEO Richard Wellington, made an unexpected offer. "We need new blood in the company," he'd said during a family dinner at their mansion in Greenwich. "Someone with fresh perspectives." He smiled at me across the crystal and silver. "How would you like to be our new CFO?" Looking back, I should have seen the trap. But I was 32, ambitious and naive enough to believe that merit mattered more than family politics. The warning signs appeared almost immediately. During my first week, I requested access to the company's complete financial records. Richard's brother, James Wellington, who served as COO, laughed it off. "Don't worry your pretty head about the complex stuff," he said, patting my shoulder condescendingly. "Just focus on the regular reporting. We handle the special accounts." But I did worry, and I did investigate. At first glance, Wellington Industries books looked impeccable. The company, which manufactured high-tech medical equipment, showed steady growth and healthy profits. Yet something felt off about the numbers. Late at night, after everyone had left the office, I started digging deeper. Small discrepancies in international shipping manifests, inventory numbers that didn't quite match between systems, wire transfers to offshore accounts that were just under reporting thresholds. "You're working too hard," Michael would say when I came home late again. "Dad says you're being too detail-oriented. It's not good for the family dynamic." The family dynamic. Everything in the Wellington world revolved around maintaining appearances. Sunday dinners at the mansion, charity galas, country club memberships. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, was the queen of this carefully curated world. "Darling," she'd say, sipping her perpetual glass of Chardonnay, "you simply must learn to relax. Let the men handle the difficult decisions. That's how we've always done things." But I couldn't relax. The discrepancies kept adding up. Using my background in forensic accounting, I began building a shadow database, tracking every suspicious transaction, every questionable entry. I hired a trusted aid specialist, Tom Martinez, to help me create secure backups of everything I found. "This is serious," Tom whispered one night, showing me what he'd discovered in the encrypted server logs. "They're running a parallel accounting system. The numbers we see? They're just the surface. The real story, buried beneath layers of shell companies and clever accounting tricks, was staggering. Over $50 million had been systematically siphoned from the company over the past 5 years. The money moved through a complex network of offshore accounts, eventually ending up in private holdings controlled by Richard, James, and several board members. But the fraud went beyond simple embezzlement. They were also falsifying safety test results for their medical equipment, cutting corners on quality control while pocketing the difference. People's lives were at risk. I documented everything meticulously, building an airtight case. The hard part was deciding what to do with it. Michael, though not involved in the fraud, was caught in the middle. "They're still family," he said when I tried to hint at what I found. "Whatever you think they're doing, I'm sure there's an explanation." Yesterday morning, I finally understood why Richard had hired me. The board meeting was supposed to be routine, quarterly results, project updates, the usual. But Richard had other plans. "Before we continue," he announced, "we need to address a serious concern. Our CFO, while technically competent, lacks the vision and understanding needed for a company of our stature." James nodded solemnly. "She's too focused on minor details, questioning established practices. It's disrupting our operations." Therefore, Richard continued, looking at me with false regret, "we'll be bringing in someone more experienced, someone who understands how things work in the real world." The board members, all old friends of the family, murmured in agreement. I sat there, feeling their smugness, their certainty that I was just another naive outsider who didn't understand their sophisticated financial arrangements. "Do you have anything to say?" Richard asked, expecting me to plead or protest. I smiled, gathered my things, and stood up. "Only that you should keep your morning calendar clear tomorrow. You'll be having some unexpected visitors." "Is that a threat?" James laughed. "Listen to her, trying to play in the big leagues." Richard waved dismissively. "Security will escort you out. And Julia, remember your non-disclosure agreement. We wouldn't want any unfortunate legal situations." I walked out quietly, hearing their laughter behind me. In my office, I sent one final email, the culmination of 3 years of investigation sent to the SEC, FBI, and Department of Justice. Then I deleted my computer's hard drive, knowing that all the evidence was safely backed up on servers they couldn't access. That evening, Michael found me in our home office, calmly working on my laptop. "Dad called," he said. "What happened at the board meeting?" I looked at my husband, seeing the conflict in his eyes. "Your father made his choice 3 years ago," I said softly. "Tomorrow, you'll have to live with it." "What do you mean?" But I just turned back to my work. In a few hours, federal agents would receive my detailed report, complete with transaction records, test falsification evidence, and a complete map of the Wellington family's fraudulent empire. The next morning dawned clear and cold. I arrived at Wellington Industries headquarters at precisely 8:30 a.m., dressed in my best suit. The security guards, not yet informed of my termination, let me in with their usual nods. I settled into my office and waited. At 9:15, right on schedule, all hell broke loose. The FBI arrived first, a dozen agents in dark suits, led by Special Agent Sarah Martinez. The SEC investigators followed minutes later. I watched through my office window as they strode into the lobby, badges displayed, heading straight for the executive floor. Richard Wellington's outraged voice echoed down the hallway. "This is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?" "Yes, Mr. Wellington," Agent Martinez replied calmly. "We know exactly who you are and what you've been doing." I stepped out of my office just as James Wellington tried to run for the emergency stairs. 2 agents intercepted him smoothly. Behind him, his assistant was frantically shredding documents, not that it would help. I had copies of everything. "You," Richard spotted me, his face turned purple with rage. "What have you done?" "My job," I replied quietly. "I'm the CFO, remember? I follow the numbers." The next few hours were carefully choreographed chaos. Agents seized computers and files. Board members were escorted to separate conference rooms for questioning. The company's servers were locked down, though I'd already ensured the important evidence was safely backed up off-site. Tom Martinez, my IT specialist, arrived with federal cybercrime experts. "The parallel accounting system is exactly where you documented," he reported. "They can't delete anything now." Around noon, Michael appeared in my office doorway. He looked shell-shocked, his world crumbling around him. "Did you know?" he asked. "All this time." "I knew something was wrong the first month," I said gently. "It took 3 years to prove it. Your father wasn't just stealing money, Michael. They were falsifying safety tests on medical equipment. People could have died." He sank into a chair. "The charitable foundation, the hospital wing they funded." "Money laundering," I confirmed. "Clean profits mixed with dirty money, cycled through offshore accounts and back into legitimate-looking investments." "Why didn't you tell me? Would you have believed me? Over your father?" The look in his eyes answered my question. By evening, the story had broken. Wellington Industries executives arrested in $50 million fraud scheme ran across every major news network. The company's stock was temporarily suspended from trading. Employees gathered in shocked groups, watching their prestigious company's name dragged through the mud. I spent hours with federal prosecutors, walking them through the evidence. The case was airtight, every transaction documented, every false test result preserved, every illegal transfer tracked to its source. "This is extraordinary work," Agent Martinez said, reviewing my files. 3 years of careful investigation, and they never suspected. I smiled slightly. They saw what they expected to see, a naive daughter-in-law playing at business. Their prejudice was their weakness. The fallout was swift and severe. Richard, James, and 6 board members were indicted on multiple federal charges. The company's stock plummeted when trading resumed. Clients began canceling contracts, fearful of the compromised medical equipment. But I had planned for this too. 1 week after the arrests, I presented a restructuring plan to the remaining board members and major shareholders. A complete audit of all products, transparent safety testing, new quality control procedures. I had already contacted reputable manufacturers who could verify and, if necessary, replace any compromised equipment. The company can survive this, I told them, but only with complete transparency and a total change in culture. To my surprise, they listened. Perhaps the sight of Richard and James being led away in handcuffs had focused their minds wonderfully. Michael struggled with the revelations. His father's betrayal, his family's disgrace, his own unwitting role in it all. It was a lot to process. We separated for a few months while he worked through his feelings. I should have trusted you, he said when he finally came home. Should have seen what was happening. They were your family, I replied. We see what we want to see in the people we love. The criminal trials lasted 18 months. Richard and James were sentenced to 15 years each. The board members received lesser sentences in exchange for cooperation. Eleanor Wellington retreated to a sister's house in Europe, her social position in ruins. Wellington Industries survived, though changed. I was appointed CEO by the Reform Board, with a mandate to rebuild the company's reputation. We rehired laid-off workers, implemented stringent quality controls, and slowly regained our clients' trust. The hardest part was facing the families of patients who had received potentially compromised equipment. I insisted on meeting them personally, explaining what had happened and how we were making it right. Last month, I gave a guest lecture at Stanford Business School. The topic? Corporate ethics and the courage to see. The students were particularly interested in how I'd maintained my cover for 3 years while building the case. Numbers tell stories, I told them, remembering my father's lessons at our kitchen table. But you have to be willing to listen, even when the story isn't what you want to hear. Michael and I rebuilt our relationship slowly. He left the company to pursue his original passion for environmental conservation, founding a successful nonprofit. We agreed that some distances, like separate careers, can actually strengthen bonds. Yesterday, I received a letter from Richard Wellington in prison. You destroyed everything we built, he wrote. Our reputation, our legacy, our family name. I didn't reply. He still doesn't understand that he destroyed those things himself, long before I exposed the truth. My job was simply to ensure that the numbers finally told their story. The Wellington mansion was sold to cover legal settlements. I heard Eleanor sometimes drives past it, remembering her glory days. The country club found convenient reasons to revoke their membership. The charity galas now celebrate new heroes. But in my office, now on the top floor, I keep a small reminder. A framed copy of my original hiring letter as CFO, signed by Richard Wellington himself. It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest mistakes people make come from underestimating those they look down upon. The company's new mission statement is carved in a lobby wall. Integrity in innovation, truth in numbers. Every morning when I walk past it, I think about choices, the ones the Wellingtons made, and the ones I made in response. Tom Martinez is now our Chief Technology Officer, leading a department dedicated to transparent reporting and security. The offshore accounts are closed, their contents restored to the company and its victims. The parallel accounting system exists only in evidence archives. And me? I still stay late sometimes, reviewing reports, checking numbers. Old habits die hard. But now I'm protecting something worth protecting. A company that saves lives honestly, that values truth over appearance. Last week, a young analyst came to me with concerns about some unusual transactions. I listened carefully, remembered another woman who once spotted irregularities, and gave her the support I wish I had at the start. Because sometimes the most important numbers aren't on balance sheets, they're the ones that measure. The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Rothschild Hotel's ballroom cast golden light across the champagne-sipping crowd. Another luxury hotel opening, another chance for the Rothschild family to showcase their hospitality empire. If only they knew what was really happening behind those gold-leafed walls. Still inspecting the linen's grace, Victoria Rothschild's voice dripped with mock concern. Old habits die hard, I suppose. I turned from the window where I'd been watching the sunset over Manhattan, keeping my expression neutral. Actually, I was admiring the view. The positioning of this property is quite strategic. Strategic? Charles Rothschild, my father-in-law, laughed heartily. It's prime real estate, dear. Something you'd understand if you had proper hospitality management training instead of, what was it again? A master's degree in international hospitality from Cornell. I replied calmly, and 15 years of operational experience. Starting as a housekeeper, Victoria reminded everyone within earshot. Though I suppose someone has to make the beds. The subtle titters from the surrounding hotel executives made my skin crawl. But I maintained my smile. If they only knew that while they were building outdated luxury hotels, I created Horizon Hospitality, the fastest-growing boutique hotel brand in Asia and Europe. Leave her alone, mother, my husband Peter interjected, though his voice wavered slightly. The Rothschilds had that effect on people, even their own son. 3 generations of luxury hoteliers had taught them how to weaponize disapproval. We're just concerned, Charles said, adjusting his Rolex. Grace has potential, despite her humble beginnings. She could have a real position at Rothschild Hotels. Instead, she wastes time with that little consulting business of hers. Little consulting business. I suppressed a smile, thinking of the encrypted files on my laptop showing Horizon's true market position. While Rothschild Hotels built monuments to excess, Horizon had revolutionized the industry with sustainable luxury and digital innovation. Sometimes the best innovations come from understanding every level of operations, I said quietly. From the ground up. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. Innovation. Luxury hospitality is about tradition, dear. Our guests expect the Rothschild standard, crystal, marble, gold. Not your, what did you call it? Sustainable luxury. The same sustainable luxury that had earned Horizon the coveted Global Hospitality Innovation Award last month. An award I couldn't acknowledge yet, not until tomorrow's announcement. Speaking of standards, Charles interjected, the board is reviewing regional management positions next week. A proper corporate role might help you understand how this industry really works. And there it was. The real reason for this public humiliation. The Rothschilds didn't just want to control their empire. They wanted to squash any hint of competition, even from family. Thank you, but I'm quite satisfied with my current work, I replied, sipping champagne that probably cost more than a housekeeper's monthly salary. Satisfied? Victoria's eyebrows rose perfectly. With a small consulting firm. Every major hotel group in the country works with Rothschild Hotels. I thought about tomorrow's investor meeting, where the truth about Horizon would finally be revealed. There's more to hospitality than luxury hotels, Victoria. Peter shifted uncomfortably beside me. He knew part of the truth. He was one of only 3 people who did. We kept Horizon's true ownership secret for years, watching and waiting for the perfect moment. The industry is changing, I continued. Guests want something different now. Different? Charles scoffed. We've defined luxury hospitality for 50 years. Our methods are proven to be increasingly irrelevant according to every market analysis. But the Rothschilds were too busy polishing their crystal to see the digital revolution coming. Times change, I said simply, even in luxury. Victoria's hand gripped my arm, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Listen, dear, you have a chance to be part of something significant. Don't waste it chasing trendy concepts like sustainability and digital integration. I gently removed her hand, thinking of Horizon's latest properties, seamlessly blending luxury with environmental responsibility and cutting-edge technology. Everything the Rothschilds dismissed as trendy. Thank you for your concern, I said. But I should go. I have an early meeting tomorrow. With clients? Victoria's laugh tinkled like her precious crystal. More small hotels needing housekeeping advice? Something like that. I kissed Peter's cheek, ignoring Victoria's slight frown at this public display. Good night, everyone. Beautiful opening as always. As I walked to my car, Marcus Chen, my chief technology officer at Horizon, fell into step beside me. They still don't suspect anything. Too busy counting their crystal glasses, I replied, unlocking my Tesla, purchased with Horizon profits, not Rothschild money. Tomorrow will be interesting. In my home office that night, I reviewed the final details for tomorrow's announcement, the presentation showing Horizon's true market position, the partnership deals with major investors, the technology that would make traditional hotel operations obsolete. My phone buzzed. A message from our lead investor. Documents signed. Press releases ready. You're sure about tomorrow? I thought about Victoria's condescending smile, Charles's dismissal of innovation, their decades of treating service staff like invisible machinery. I'm sure, I typed back. Everything's ready. The next message came from our PR director, media briefing prepared. Industry analysts positioned. They won't know what hit them. I smiled, remembering Charles's words about proper hospitality management. He had no idea that while they were building their last century's vision of luxury, I created the future of hospitality. Looking out over the city lights, I thought about my first day as a housekeeper, learning every detail of hotel operations from the ground up. Know your place, Victoria had once told me. Well, I did know my place, at the forefront of a hospitality revolution. And tomorrow, the Rothschild family would learn that some empires aren't built on crystal and marble, but on understanding what luxury really means in the modern world. The Rothschild Hotel's corporate boardroom epitomized old-world luxury, Italian marble tables, antique tapestries, and views of Central Park that cost more than most hotels' annual revenue. At 8:45 a.m., Victoria Rothschild swept in, already frowning at my presence. Grace, this is a private investor meeting. Surely Peter told you. Actually, I interrupted smoothly. I called this meeting. I nodded to James Chen, CEO of Global Hospitality Ventures, who had just entered. Shall we begin? What is the meaning of this? Charles demanded as more investors filed in. His face reddened when he recognized the CEO of Asian Pacific Resorts and the director of European Luxury Holdings, the biggest names in international hospitality. Please, everyone take your seats, I said calmly. We have a lot to cover. Victoria's perfectly composed face slipped slightly as she noticed the Horizon Hospitality logo on the presentation screen. That's your little consulting company, isn't it? What could possibly? Horizon Hospitality, James Chen began, is the fastest-growing luxury hotel brand in the world. Their revolutionary approach to sustainable luxury and digital integration has transformed the industry. And today, we're announcing a global partnership that will change everything. The room fell silent as the first slides appeared, showing Horizon's true market position. 40 properties across 3 continents, guest satisfaction scores that made Rothschild hotels look outdated, revenue growth that defied industry standards. Impossible, Charles whispered. We would have known. Would you? I asked quietly. You were too busy adding more crystal chandeliers to notice that the industry was changing. While you were polishing marble, we were developing AI-driven service platforms. While you were gilding lobbies, we were creating zero-carbon luxury experiences. Victoria's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her water. But, you're just a former housekeeper? I finished for her. Yes. Someone who learned hotel operations from the ground up. Someone who saw what guests really wanted. Not just luxury, but meaningful, sustainable luxury. Technology that enhances service rather than replaces it. Environmental responsibility without sacrificing comfort. The presentation continued, showing Horizon's innovations. Smart rooms that learned guest preferences, sustainable operations that saved millions while enhancing the guest experience, staff training programs that created career paths instead of dead-end jobs. Your consulting business, Charles managed, his voice hoarse. It was a cover? It was market research, I corrected. Every time he sent me to fix another struggling Rothschild property, I learned more about what needed to change in this industry. Every dismissive comment about housekeeping helped me build better staff development programs. James Chen stood up. Global Hospitality Ventures is acquiring a controlling interest in Rothschild hotels, he announced. Under Horizon's management. Under her management, Victoria's voice rose an octave. But we're the Rothschilds. We built this industry. You built what luxury meant 50 years ago, I said gently. But the world has changed. Today's guests want more than crystal and marble. They want responsibility, sustainability, real service, not just the appearance of it. The screens showed the transformation plans. Rothschild properties renovated with sustainable materials, staff trained in Horizon's innovative service methods, technology integrated seamlessly into the guest experience. You went behind our backs, Charles accused, but his voice lacked its usual authority. Use our name. Actually, I corrected, I built something completely different. Horizon succeeded because it isn't Rothschild hotels, it's everything you refuse to become. Peter, who had been quietly watching, finally spoke. The sustainable luxury concepts you dismissed last year, the digital integration you called trendy, she tried to help you change. You wouldn't listen. The next few hours were a blur of contracts, press releases, and restructuring plans. By afternoon, the headlines read, Hospitality Revolution. Innovative Horizon Group acquires traditional Rothschild hotels. Victoria found me in my new office, Charles's former suite, that evening. How? She asked simply. How did we not see this coming? You saw what you expected to see, I replied. A housekeeper trying to rise above her station. You never thought someone who made beds could understand luxury better than you did. 6 months later, I stood in the lobby of the first renovated Rothschild Horizon property. The crystal chandeliers had been replaced with stunning art installations powered by renewable energy. The marble floors were now sustainable bamboo. And the staff moved with the confidence of people building careers, not just serving the wealthy. Marcus Chen, my CTO, joined me for the final inspection. Guest satisfaction scores are up 40%, he reported. Operating costs down 35%. And we're carbon neutral. And the Rothschilds? I asked. Charles retired to their place in Monaco. Victoria's apparently taken up environmental activism of all things, trying to rebrand herself as a sustainable luxury consultant. I laughed, remembering her dismissal of trendy sustainability. My phone buzzed with another message. Our Dubai property had just won the Global Innovation in Luxury Award. The former Rothschild boardroom was now a training center, teaching everything from housekeeping to executive management. On its walls hung photos of our staff at all levels, including one of me making beds during my first year in hotels. Why keep that photo? Peter asked when he visited. After everything they said about your background. Because it reminds me where real luxury comes from, I replied. Not from crystal and marble, but from understanding what service really means. The desert holds its secrets well. That's what my grandfather always told me during our long walks across his seemingly worthless acres of sun-baked Nevada land. What the Henderson family never understood was that Grandpa Jack wasn't just a stubborn old man holding onto useless dirt. He was a visionary who saw the future in every ray of sunshine that hit his property. My name is Rachel Turner, and until last week, I was just the simple daughter-in-law who married into the prestigious Henderson family. The one who worked as an environmental sustainability consultant while everyone else chased real estate fortunes. The one who actually listened when Grandpa Jack talked about solar radiation levels and government energy initiatives. You can't be serious. Victoria Henderson's voice cut through the law office like a knife. Dad left the prime Lake Tahoe properties to us, but gave 3,000 acres of desert wasteland to her? My mother-in-law spat out the last word like it tasted bitter. William Clark, Grandpa Jack's lawyer for 30 years, adjusted his glasses. The will is quite clear. The Nevada property, all 3,247 acres, transfers entirely to Rachel Turner. My husband Thomas shifted uncomfortably beside me. His sister Amanda was already typing furiously on her phone, no doubt calculating what she thought was the minimal value of worthless desert land. This is ridiculous, Victoria continued. She's not even a real Henderson, just some tree-hugging consultant who got lucky with Thomas. She wouldn't know what to do with real property if her life depended on it. I thought about the folder in my bag, the one containing the preliminary proposals from the Department of Energy, about the satellite surveys showing my worthless inheritance had the highest solar radiation levels in the state, about the rare earth mineral deposits Grandpa Jack had quietly documented over decades. Rachel, Thomas whispered, maybe Mom's right. What are you going to do with desert land? We should sell it to the family for a fair price. A fair price. They had no idea what fair would mean in about 24 hours. Actually, I said quietly, I think I'll hold on to it. Grandpa Jack was pretty specific about wanting me to have that particular property. Victoria's laugh was pure condescension. Of course he was specific. He was going senile at the end. Probably thought he was doing you a favor, giving you anything at all. I remembered my last private conversation with Grandpa Jack, 3 months before he passed. We'd been standing on a ridge overlooking his desert property, watching the sun set in a blaze of orange and red. The world's changing, Rachel, he'd said, his voice still strong despite his illness. People like Victoria, they see wealth in buildings and water views. But the real future? It's right here, in every ray of sunshine hitting this land. He handed me a thick envelope that day. Don't open this until after the will reading. And remember, sometimes the best revenge is letting people think they've won. Now, watching Victoria and Amanda smirk at their prime inheritance, I thought about that envelope and its contents: detailed geological surveys, solar radiation studies, and most importantly, documentation of the governmental plans to build the largest solar energy farm in North America. Well, William Clark continued, there are some additional documents to review. The Lake Tahoe properties come with certain obligations, maintenance costs, property taxes, environmental compliance requirements. Victoria waved her hand dismissively. Yes, we know how to manage premium real estate. Unlike some people. She shot me another withering look. I pulled out my phone, checking the time. In exactly 18 hours, the Department of Energy would announce its solar initiative plan. The plan that would reveal my worthless desert land was the prime location for a $2 billion solar energy project. Rachel, Amanda said with fake sweetness, if you're worried about managing the property taxes, we could take it off your hands. Say $500 per acre, that's generous for useless desert. $500 per acre. The government's preliminary offer was close to $100,000 per acre, not counting the mineral rights or the ongoing revenue share from energy production. I appreciate the offer, I said, matching her sweetness with my own. But I think I'll try my hand at property management. Grandpa Jack taught me a few things about the land. Victoria's eyes narrowed. Did he now? And what exactly did my delusional father teach you about that worthless dirt pile? How to count cacti. I thought about the solar radiation maps in my bag, about the rare earth mineral surveys, about the government contracts already being drafted, about how Grandpa Jack had spent decades positioning his worthless land for exactly this moment. He taught me to look beyond the surface, I said simply, to see value where others don't bother looking. Thomas touched my arm. Honey, be reasonable. That land is ours from anywhere. No water rights, no development potential. Mom's offer is more than fair. I stood up, gathering my things. I think we're done here, Mr. Clark. Unless there's anything else. The lawyer shook his head, a subtle smile playing at his lips. He'd helped Grandpa Jack prepare for this moment for years. He knew what was coming. This is a mistake, Victoria called after me as I headed for the door. You're throwing away good money out of some misguided loyalty to a senile old man. I paused at the threshold, thinking about Grandpa Jack's last words to me. The desert holds its secrets well, Rachel. But tomorrow always brings the dawn. Tomorrow's dawn would bring more than light. It would bring revelation, validation, and yes, a bit of well-deserved revenge. Sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in fighting back. It's in waiting for the perfect moment to let the truth shine as bright as the desert sun. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with messages from Victoria and Amanda, each offering slightly more money for my worthless inheritance. I silenced the phone, smiling as I thought about the press conference scheduled for tomorrow morning, about how quickly worthless dirt could turn into prime solar energy land in the eyes of those who only saw value in dollar signs. The desert does hold its secrets well, but some secrets are meant to be revealed in the brightest light of day. The next morning dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for a revelation. I arrived at my office early, watching the Department of Energy's livestream on my laptop while monitoring the business news channels on mute. Right on schedule, at 9 a.m. Eastern, Secretary Williams stepped up to the podium in Washington. My phone started buzzing immediately. Victoria, Amanda, Thomas, even cousins I hadn't heard from in years. I let them all go to voicemail, focusing on the Secretary's words. Today, we announced the largest renewable energy initiative in American history, she began. A $2 billion solar farm project that will power over 2 million homes. The centerpiece of this initiative will be located on privately owned land in Nevada. Land that our studies have shown to have the highest solar radiation efficiency ratings in North America. My direct line rang, William Clark calling as planned. I put him on speaker. Rachel, he said, amusement clear in his voice, I believe your mother-in-law is trying to break down my office door. Is she watching the press conference? Oh yes. She turned quite pale when they showed the map of the proposed solar farm location. even paler when they mentioned the rare earth minerals. On screen, Secretary Williams was unveiling the detailed plans. This location also contains significant deposits of neodymium and dysprosium, critical elements for renewable energy technology. The combined energy and mineral rights make this the most valuable renewable energy site in the country. My cell phone buzzed again. Thomas this time. I picked up. Rachel, he sounded breathless. The desert land, your land. They're saying it's worth about $100,000 per acre for the solar rights alone, I finished, plus mineral rights and ongoing revenue share from energy production. Quite a bit more than your sister's generous $500 per acre offer. Silence. Then, you knew. You and Grandpa knew all along. Grandpa Jack spent 30 years preparing for this moment. All those trips to the worthless desert. He was documenting solar radiation levels, conducting mineral surveys, positioning the land for exactly this opportunity. Mom's losing her mind, Thomas said quietly. She's already called her lawyers, talking about contesting a will. She won't get far, I said, watching the secretary continue her presentation. William has ironclad documentation of Grandpa Jack's competency, plus decades of scientific surveys proving he knew exactly what he was doing. A commotion outside my office drew my attention. Victoria Henderson burst in, face flushed, designer suit slightly askew. Amanda trailed behind her, still frantically typing on her phone. You conniving little witch. Victoria's voice shook. You manipulated my father, turned him against his own family. I muted the live stream. Actually, Victoria, your father turned away from the family all on his own. Watching you mock his worthless land year after year, dismissing his vision of renewable energy's future, you did that yourself. The will can't stand, Amanda interjected. Daddy was clearly not in his right mind. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out Grandpa Jack's envelope. You mean the brilliant businessman who spent 3 decades secretly conducting environmental surveys? The one who predicted the renewable energy boom and positioned his assets accordingly? I spread out the documents. The one who kept meticulous records of every soil sample, every radiation reading, every mineral deposit. Victoria snatched up one of the papers, eyes widening at the governmental letterhead. These applications for solar survey permits, they're dated 15 years ago. Grandpa Jack was many things, I said quietly, but senile wasn't one of them. He saw the future coming long before anyone else. He just needed someone who shared his vision to carry it forward. We're family, Victoria's tone switched to wheedling. Surely we can come to some arrangement, a partnership perhaps. I thought about all the times she called me simple, mocked my environmental work, dismissed me as a gold digger who got lucky with Thomas. Actually, I said, pulling out another document, I've already arranged a partnership. The Department of Energy is creating a nonprofit research foundation to study renewable energy technology. Half the proceeds from the solar farm will fund scholarships for environmental science students. You're giving away half the money? Amanda looked horrified. To strangers? I'm investing in the future, I corrected. Just like Grandpa Jack invested in that worthless desert 30 years ago. My phone buzzed. A text from William Clark. Contractors arriving at the property now. Shall I send you the video feed? I turned my monitor around, showing the live security feed from the property. Heavy equipment was already rolling in, geological survey teams marking sites for the initial solar array installation. Victoria slumped into a chair, the fight draining out of her. All those years, we thought he was just being stubborn, holding onto useless land. He tried to tell you, I said. Every time you mocked his dirt pile, every time you dismissed renewable energy as a pipe dream. But you were too busy counting the value of your Lake Tahoe views to listen. Thomas spoke up from the doorway where he'd been quietly watching. The property taxes on those lake houses, they're more than the properties generate in rent. I nodded. Grandpa Jack knew that too. Those prime properties are actually money pits. The real wealth was always in the desert, for those willing to look past the surface. Over the next few weeks, the true scope of Grandpa Jack's vision became clear. The solar farm would be the largest in the Western Hemisphere. The mineral deposits would supply rare earth elements for the next generation of renewable technology. The land value soared to over $400,000 per acre. Victoria and Amanda did try to contest the will. Their lawyers withdrew the case after seeing Grandpa Jack's meticulously documented surveys and permits. The press had a field day. Solar Visionary's grand plan revealed, and Desert Gold, the future of green energy. I kept my office simple, but I did hang one new item on the wall. A photograph of Grandpa Jack standing on his worthless desert land, smiling at the setting sun. Below it, I framed the last note he'd written me. The future belongs to those who can see the value in tomorrow's sunlight. Some will call you simple for believing in that future. Let them. The desert knows how to keep its secrets until the right moment. The Henderson family's Lake Tahoe properties were sold within a year, the maintenance costs proving too high. Victoria still won't speak to me, but Thomas has come around, even joining the foundation's board to help guide its renewable energy initiatives. Last week, I stood on that same ridge where Grandpa Jack and I had our last conversation. But now, instead of empty desert, I saw fields of solar panels stretching to the horizon, capturing the sunlight he'd valued so much. The land wasn't worthless. It was just waiting for the right moment to reveal its true value. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in proving people wrong immediately. Sometimes it's in letting them dismiss you, underestimate you, mock what they don't understand. Because when the right moment comes, when the sun finally rises on the truth, the realization of their own blindness is worth more than any amount of land. The desert does hold its secrets well, but when those secrets are finally revealed, they shine brighter than any lake view ever could. Reckless, dangerous, unethical. Dr. William Harrison's words echoed through the hospital boardroom as he paced in front of the Medical Ethics Committee. Dr. Zhang's insistence on pursuing these alternative treatments puts patients at risk and damages our hospital's reputation. I sat quietly, watching my former mentor systematically destroy my career. 10 years of research into integrative medicine approaches for treating chronic autoimmune conditions, about to be dismissed as dangerous quackery. I'm Dr. Sarah Zhang, and this is the story of how the medical establishment's attempt to silence my research led to the exposure of a billion-dollar pharmaceutical fraud. Dr. Zhang combines unproven Eastern medicine techniques with experimental protocols. Harrison continued, clicking through slides showing my treatment methods. She's turning our respected research hospital into a glorified holistic healing center. The committee members nodded along, already convinced. They didn't care that my patients were showing remarkable improvement rates. Didn't want to hear about the successful integration of traditional Chinese medicine with modern immunotherapy. All they saw was a threat to their upcoming clinical trial for PharmaCorp's new miracle drug, Immunorist. Furthermore, Harrison gestured to a chart. She's been actively discouraging patients from enrolling in our approved clinical trials. This is a direct violation of hospital policy. Because I'd seen the preliminary data they were hiding, I thought. Because I knew what their miracle drug was doing to test subjects. Dr. Zhang, the committee chair, turned to me. How do you respond to these allegations? I opened my laptop. I'd like to present my patient outcome data. We're not here to discuss your alternative methods, Harrison cut in. This is about your interference with approved research protocols. My patients' recovery rates are irrelevant without proper double-blind trials, he snapped. Your mixing of traditional remedies with modern treatments makes it impossible to validate any results. I thought of Mrs. Chen, who could walk again after 5 years of conventional treatment failure. Of Jason Martinez, now in remission from an incurable condition. Of dozens of patients who'd found hope after the established protocols had given up on them. The trial data for Immunorist is flawed, I said quietly. The side effects. That's enough. Harrison's face reddened. This is exactly the kind of unfounded accusation that damages our institution's credibility. The committee chair cleared his throat. Dr. Zhang, pending a full review of these concerns, your clinical privileges are suspended. Please surrender your hospital ID and access cards. As security escorted me out, Harrison caught up to me at the elevator. Sarah, his voice softened to the mentoring tone I remembered from my residency. You're a brilliant doctor. Stop this crusade against proven medicine. Come back to real science. I met his eyes. Real science follows the evidence, no matter where it leads, even when it threatens corporate profits. Don't be naive. Medicine is a business. PharmaCorp's grant funds half our research department. And how much of your personal portfolio? His face hardened. Clean out your office by tomorrow. Later that evening, as I packed my research files, my phone buzzed with a text from Jenny Wong, our lead research nurse. 3 more trial patients hospitalized. Severe complications. Harrison ordering data modified. Need to talk. I had been tracking Immunoris trial patients through my network of nurses and lab techs. The official reports showed promising results, but the reality was darker. Severe autoimmune reactions, organ damage, complications that were being systematically buried in the data. Dr. John. I looked up to find Maria Garcia, one of the trial patients, standing in my office doorway. Her hands trembled slightly. The side effects, they're getting worse. Dr. Harrison says it's normal, but I pulled out my prescription pad. Come to this address tomorrow. It's my private clinic. We'll talk there. After she left, I called Dr. Lai Wei, my mentor from medical school in Beijing. The hospital suspended me, I told him. As expected, his calm voice replied. And your other preparations? Everything's in place. The private clinic is ready. And the real trial data. Safely backed up and verified by independent labs. When do you move? I looked at the photo on my wall, my graduation from medical school, standing between Dr. Lee and my father, who'd sacrificed everything to send me to study medicine in America. They're announcing preliminary trial results next week, pushing for fast-track FDA approval based on manipulated data. And your evidence? Irrefutable. Patient records, lab results, internal emails discussing data manipulation. Plus, I smiled slightly. Detailed documentation of how my dangerous alternative treatments are actually helping the patients they're killing with their miracle drug. That night, I worked late in my private clinic, reviewing patient files. 10 years of careful research combining the best of traditional medicine with modern techniques, treatments that worked but threatened the profitable status quo. A knock at the door startled me. Jenny slipped in, carrying a thick folder. Latest trial data, she whispered though we were alone. They're pushing through approval before the severe complications become obvious. 3 patients died this week. The reports list unrelated causes. I opened the folder. Page after page of falsified data, manipulated test results, hidden complications. Harrison's presenting to the FDA next Thursday, Jenny continued. Once they get approval, they'll bury the real numbers in post-market studies. Thursday, I repeated. Perfect timing. For what? I showed her my own presentation, prepared for the same FDA meeting. For showing them what real medicine looks like. The next week was a blur of preparation. While Harrison and PharmaCorp prepared their carefully sanitized presentation, I gathered evidence. Trial patients quietly visited my clinic, their stories and medical records building an undeniable case. The truth about Immunoris was going to come out. But more importantly, the truth about real healing. About combining the best of all medical traditions to actually help patients, would finally be heard. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do in medicine is follow the money instead of the evidence. Harrison and PharmaCorp were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The question was, how many patients would suffer before the truth won out? The FDA hearing room was packed on Thursday morning. PharmaCorp's executives filled the front rows, their confidence radiating through expensive suits and practiced smiles. Dr. Harrison sat with them, reviewing his presentation one last time. I sat quietly in the back, Jenny beside me clutching a thick folder of evidence. My father's words echoed in my mind. True healing comes from wisdom, not power. Remember that when they try to silence you. Dr. Harrison, the FDA committee chair began. Please present your findings on Immunoris phase AI trials. Harrison approached the podium with his usual authority. Ladies and gentlemen, Immunoris represents a breakthrough in autoimmune disease treatment. Our trials show an unprecedented 85% improvement rate. I watched him click through carefully curated slides, presenting manipulated data as scientific fact. Each chart told a story of miracle cures, while real patients suffered in hospitals or sought help at my clinic. The side effect profile is remarkably clean, Harrison continued. Minor complications in less than 5% of cases. Excuse me, I stood up. I have evidence that contradicts these findings. The room erupted in whispers. Harrison's face darkened. Dr. Zhang is a disgraced physician whose hospital privileges were recently suspended, he said quickly. Her testimony is not. I have sworn statements from 38 trial patients I cut in, documenting severe complications that were deliberately omitted from the trial data. The committee chair frowned. These are serious allegations. I also have internal emails and original lab reports showing systematic data manipulation. I nodded to Jenny, who began distributing copies of our evidence, including documentation of 3 deaths that were ruled unrelated despite clear causal links. Harrison's professional mask cracked. This is absurd. Dr. Jung is bitter about her suspension. I have more, I continued calmly. Comparative data showing how these same patients improved using integrative treatment protocols that PharmaCorp dismissed as unscientific. Maria Garcia stood up from the audience. Dr. Jung saved my life after Immunorist nearly killed me. Everything she's saying is true. More patients stood, one after another. People whose stories had been buried in manipulated trial data, whose suffering had been dismissed as statistically insignificant. The FDA committee spent hours reviewing our evidence. By day's end, Immunorist's approval was suspended pending a full investigation. PharmaCorp's stock plunged as the truth emerged. But something else emerged too, proof that my dangerous alternative treatments actually worked. Your outcome data is remarkable, Dr. Susan Chen from the FDA told me privately. We'd like to establish a formal study of your integrative protocols. The next few months were intense. While PharmaCorp faced investigations and lawsuits, my clinic became a case study in successful integrative medicine. Researchers from major hospitals came to observe our methods to understand how we combine traditional wisdom with modern science. Harrison tried to discredit me one last time. You've destroyed years of research, he confronted me in my clinic's parking lot. Cost the company billions. I saved lives, I corrected him. That's what doctors are supposed to do. You're still naive, he snapped. Medicine is a business. No, I cut him off. Healthcare is a service. Making it just a business is what went wrong. 6 months later, I testified before a Senate committee on medical ethics and pharmaceutical testing. My story sparked new regulations on trial data reporting and increased recognition of evidence-based alternative treatments. Dr. Lai flew in from Beijing to help us establish a teaching program, sharing his knowledge of traditional medicine with Western doctors eager to learn. Your father would be proud, he told me, watching medical students train in both modern labs and traditional healing arts. You've built a bridge between worlds. The hospital that had suspended me now wanted to establish an integrative medicine department. I agreed, with conditions, complete transparency in all research, and patients' needs above corporate profits. 1 year after the FDA hearing, I stood in my expanded clinic, watching patients receive treatments that blended the best of medical traditions. Mrs. Chen practiced Tai Chi in our meditation garden, her rheumatoid arthritis in remission. Jason Martinez discussed his treatment plan, combining immunotherapy with traditional herbs that enhanced its effectiveness. Jenny, now our research director, brought me the latest outcome studies. Conventional hospitals are adopting our protocols, she said excitedly. The results are even better than we hoped. I touched the jade pendant my father had given me in medical school, because we're finally using all the tools available, not just the profitable ones. Last week, a young doctor asked me why I risked my career to fight the system. I didn't fight the system, I told her. I showed them a better way. True healing has always been about wisdom, not power. Now my clinic hosts doctors from around the world, learning to integrate different healing traditions. Even some of my former critics have become supporters, seeing the evidence they once dismissed. Harrison left medicine after the PharmaCorp scandal, his reputation destroyed by his own choices. Sometimes I think about his last words to me. Medicine is a business. He never understood that healing is an art, supported by science but guided by wisdom. That's what my father taught me. What Dr. Lai showed me. What every patient who trusted us proved. Yesterday, I received a letter from the National Institutes of Health. They're establishing a new research center for integrative medicine based on our model. They want me to lead it. Looking around my clinic at the blend of modern medical equipment and traditional healing spaces, I thought about the long journey here, about the risks of standing up to power and the greater risk of staying silent. Maria Garcia now leads our patient advocacy program, helping others understand their treatment options. You didn't just save our lives, she tells new patients. You showed us there's always hope if you're willing to look beyond the obvious. The jade pendant catches the morning light as I begin another day of patient care. Each person who walks through our doors reminds me why I chose this path, why I refuse to be silenced, why real healing will always matter more than corporate profits. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving there's a better way, a way that honors all forms of healing wisdom, that puts patients before profits, that remembers medicine's true purpose. My father used to say that every healer faces a choice between following power and following wisdom. Power brings quick profits but causes hidden harm. Wisdom takes longer but brings true healing. Looking at our clinic's success, at the lives we change, at the medical system we're slowly transforming, I know I made the right choice. Because in the end, true healing isn't about winning fights. It's about ending them by showing there was never a need to fight at all. Just a need to listen, learn, and remember why we became healers in the first place. The mahogany conference table gleamed under the fluorescent lights as I reviewed the financial reports one final time. Soon, this room would become a battlefield, and these numbers would be my weapons. My name is Angela Chin, and after 3 years of watching my brothers systematically loot our family's company, I was finally ready to expose everything. Kin Global Logistics had been our family's pride for 2 generations. What started as my father's small shipping company had grown into a major player in international logistics, with operations across Asia and the Americas. Now, thanks to my brother Michael's schemes, it was bleeding money through dozens of carefully hidden channels. Not that anyone else could see it. Michael, with his Harvard MBA and slick presentations, had convinced the board that our financial problems were my fault. As chief financial officer, I was the perfect scapegoat for his elaborate fraud. Another late night, Angela? Michael's voice carried its usual mix of condescension and false concern as he passed my office. You really should learn to delegate more. All this obsession with details, it's not healthy. I looked up from my screens, maintaining the facade of the overwhelmed younger sister that he'd so carefully crafted. Just reviewing the quarterly numbers, Michael. You know how particular the board is about accuracy. He smiled, the same smile he used when convincing our father to make him CEO 2 years ago. Don't worry too much about tomorrow's meeting. I'm sure we can find you a less demanding role in the company. After you left, I returned to my analysis. On the surface, everything in our books looked legitimate. Michael had been clever, using a complex web of shell companies and consulting contracts to disguise his theft. But he'd forgotten one crucial detail. I hadn't earned my CPA and forensic accounting certification just to be a corporate puppet. The first signs of trouble had appeared 6 months after Michael became CEO. Small discrepancies in international wire transfers, consulting fees that didn't quite add up, shipping routes that made no logical sense. Each anomaly was minor enough to escape casual notice, but together they told a story of systematic fraud. I started gathering evidence quietly, careful to maintain my image as the dutiful but somewhat naive sister. Every time Michael patronizingly explained away my concerns, I added another piece to my investigation. Every time he blamed me for financial shortfalls in board meetings, I traced another thread of his scheme. You need to see this, my assistant Lisa whispered one evening, slipping a USB drive onto my desk. A former forensic accountant herself, she'd been helping me unravel Michael's web of deception. The Panama Shell Company, it links back to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Working late into the night, we followed the money trail. Michael had created an intricate network of fake suppliers, inflated contracts, and offshore accounts. While the company's legitimate operations struggled, millions were being siphoned away through his shadow network. The evidence was devastating. Transfer records, forged documents, secret account statements, all pointing to a massive fraud orchestrated by the company's trusted CEO. But I needed more than just paper trails. I needed to understand why. The answer came from an unexpected source. Carol from Human Resources dropped by my office, ostensibly to discuss benefit packages. Once the door was closed, she told me about conversations she overheard between Michael and unknown partners. They're planning to sell the company, she said quietly. Break it up and sell the pieces to competitors. The fraud isn't just about stealing money. It's about devaluing the company for a hostile takeover. The pieces clicked into place. Michael wasn't just embezzling funds, he was deliberately weakening our company to make it vulnerable to acquisition. The financial mismanagement he blamed on me was part of a larger strategy to justify selling our family's legacy. I spent the next week preparing meticulously. Every transaction was documented, every false contract traced to its source. I coordinated with bank investigators, regulatory authorities, and corporate security. The trap was set. The morning of the quarterly board meeting, Michael strode into my office, radiating false sympathy. "Angela, before we go in, I want you to know this isn't personal. Business is business. Sometimes changes need to be made for the good of the company." I nodded, playing my part one last time. "Of course, Michael. I understand." The boardroom filled quickly. Board members, department heads, even some major shareholders Michael had invited to witness my humiliation. He had orchestrated everything perfectly, or so he thought. "Before we begin," Michael announced, standing at the head of the table, "we need to address the serious financial issues facing Chen Global Logistics. As CEO, I have a responsibility to take decisive action when leadership fails." He launched into his presentation, each slide carefully crafted to show declining performance and questionable decisions, all blamed, directly or indirectly, on me. "The numbers don't lie," he declared, reaching his crescendo. "Under the current financial management, we've lost millions. It's time for a change." The board members nodded solemnly. They'd seen the numbers Michael wanted them to see, drawn the conclusions he'd led them toward. Everything was proceeding exactly as he planned. "You're right, Michael," I said quietly, standing up. "The numbers don't lie. They tell quite a story, in fact. Would you like to see the real numbers?" The first hint of uncertainty flickered across his face as I connected my laptop to the projector. In the front row, Lisa and Carol sat ready with additional documentation. Years of careful preparation were about to pay off. "Let me show you," I continued, pulling up the first set of records, "exactly where those millions really went." The first slide appeared on the screen. A complex flowchart showing money movements through various shell companies. Michael's confident smile froze as he recognized the account numbers. "As you can see," I continued calmly, "these transfers from our operating accounts didn't actually go to suppliers. They were routed through a series of shell companies before ending up in private accounts in the Cayman Islands." "This is ridiculous," Michael tried to interrupt, but his voice had lost its usual authority. "These are standard business transactions." "Really?" I clicked to the next slide. "Standard business transactions with companies that don't exist?" Let's look at Global Shipping Solutions, our largest new supplier. Incorporated 6 months ago, no physical address, no employees, and coincidentally sharing a bank account number with your personal offshore holdings. The boardroom erupted in murmurs. Board members leaned forward, studying the evidence with growing concern. Michael's carefully constructed facade was beginning to crack. "Lisa." I nodded to my assistant, who began distributing thick folders to each board member. "You'll find complete documentation of every fraudulent transaction for the past 3 years. Bank records, false contracts, forged authorizations, all traced back to their source." Michael made one last attempt to regain control. "This is a desperate attempt by a failing executive to deflect blame." Actually, a new voice cut in from the doorway. "This is the result of a 6-month federal investigation into corporate fraud and money laundering." Special Agent Sarah Torres from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit stepped into the room, followed by 2 other agents. "Mr. Chen, we have some questions about certain international wire transfers." The color drained from Michael's face as Agent Torres continued. "We've been working with Ms. Chen and her team to document systematic fraud amounting to over $75 million. But the attempted hostile takeover, that was a surprise even to us." "Hostile takeover?" our board chairman asked sharply. I pulled up another set of documents, emails between Michael and executives at our largest competitors, discussing the planned sale of Chen Global Logistics assets at fire sale prices. "The fraud wasn't just about stealing money," I explained. "It was about weakening the company deliberately, making it vulnerable to acquisition. Michael has been working with Dover Logistics to arrange a takeover once our stock price fell low enough." Carol stepped forward, adding her testimony about the conversations she overheard. Other employees began speaking up, sharing pieces of evidence they'd gathered over the years but had been afraid to reveal. Michael looked around wildly, seeing his support evaporate. "You don't understand," he tried, his composure finally breaking. Dover offered me a position as CEO of their Asian operations. We could have been part of something bigger. We already were part of something bigger, I cut in. This company isn't just about profits or market share. It's about the legacy Dad built, the families who depend on us, the trust our partners place in us. As the FBI agents led Michael away for questioning, the board moved quickly to address the crisis. Emergency measures were implemented to secure accounts and reassure stakeholders. Years of damage would need to be undone. Dad came out of retirement temporarily to help stabilize the company. The look on his face when he finally understood the full scope of Michael's betrayal was heartbreaking. I should have seen it, he said quietly as we worked late one night. All those times he dismissed your concerns. He counted on people underestimating me, I replied. The quiet accountant who just didn't understand modern business methods. The recovery took months. We had to rebuild relationships with suppliers, restore employee trust, and implement new financial controls. But gradually, Chen Global Logistics began to heal. 6 months after Michael's arrest, I stood in our Shanghai office, watching containers being loaded with a precision and efficiency that had made our company great. Lisa joined me at the window. The new compliance systems are working perfectly, she reported. Every transaction traceable, every authorization verified. No more shadows to hide in. I nodded, thinking of the lessons we'd learned. Trust is essential in family businesses, but it needs to be paired with transparency and accountability. Michael's betrayal had taught us that the hard way. The legal proceedings were extensive, but the evidence was overwhelming. Michael had betrayed not just his family, but hundreds of employees who had trusted him to lead responsibly. The attempted hostile takeover added charges of corporate espionage to his fraud convictions. Yet from those ashes, something stronger emerged. Chen Global Logistics developed new governance structures with robust checks and balances. Transparency became more than just a buzzword, it was built into every process, every decision. 1 year after the board meeting that changed everything, we gathered for a different kind of meeting. Employee ownership shares were being distributed, making everyone invested in the company's success. The culture of fear and secrecy that Michael had created was replaced with open communication and shared responsibility. Dad spoke at the ceremony, looking both proud and wistful. Your grandfather, he told the assembled employees, built this company on a foundation of trust and integrity. Sometimes it takes a crisis to remind us what really matters. I kept Michael's old nameplate from the boardroom, not as a trophy but as a reminder. Success built on deception never lasts. True leadership isn't about control or power. It's about building something that helps everyone succeed together. The company flourished under the new structure. Our logistics innovation team, free from the artificial financial constraints Michael had imposed, developed breakthrough systems. Employee morale soared. Even our stock price reached new highs as the market recognized our renewed strength. Sometimes late at night, I still look at old family photos and wonder how things might have been different. If Michael had channeled his ambition into building rather than destroying, what might we have achieved together? But the past can't be changed. What matters is the future we build from its lessons. Chen Global Logistics survived not just because we exposed the fraud, but because we used that crisis to become better, stronger, more transparent. That's the real legacy now, not just a successful company, but a testament to the power of truth over deception, of collaboration over control, of building something that lasts. And somewhere, I know grandfather would be proud of that.